Welcome. Everyone laughed at him, but he kept going, not because confidence stayed, but because stopping felt heavier. The laughter arrived early, before skill, before clarity, before he understood what he was becoming. It came from rooms, hallways, comments, pauses, and smiles that hid judgment behind friendliness. "Why try?" someone asked, laughing softly, as if saving him from embarrassment. He smiled politely, said nothing, and walked away carrying questions heavier than their words. At night, silence returned those questions with interest, repeating them until sleep felt distant. What if they are right, he wondered, staring at ceilings that offered no answers. Morning arrived anyway, and with it, another choice to stand up. "I will do one thing today," he told himself, keeping the promise intentionally small. That promise felt possible, even on days belief refused to cooperate. He practiced quietly, away from attention, away from approval, away from reasons to perform. Mistakes happen often, sometimes publicly, sometimes alone, always teaching without mercy. Laughter followed mistakes quickly, as if waiting for permission to appear. "See?" someone said once. "This isn't for you." He nodded again, not agreeing, not arguing, just continuing with tired legs. Inside, a different conversation was growing, slower, steadier, less dramatic. "Learn from this," he told himself. "Don't defend it." Defending wasted energy, but observing revealed patterns he could actually change. He wrote notes, not dreams, not goals, just honest observations after each attempt. "I rush here. I freeze when watched. I improve when breathing slows." Those notes felt kinder than opinions, clearer than motivation, and more useful than praise. Some mornings felt heavy without reason, as if effort itself gained weight overnight. On those mornings, he moved slower, but he still moved. "Slow is allowed," he whispered, tying shoes with deliberate patience. People kept laughing, but less loudly now, less often, less confidently. Some laughed kindly, some nervously, some because trying frightened them deeply. He noticed fear behind laughter and stopped taking it personally. Explaining himself never helped, so he stopped explaining altogether. Silence created space, and space allowed him to focus longer. Focus turned repetition into progress, though progress remained invisible to most. Days blended together, ordinary and repetitive, without milestones or celebrations. He learned to respect ordinary days because they carried most of the work. Failure stopped feeling dramatic and started feeling familiar, almost routine. Routine softened fear because familiarity replaced surprise. "What if this never works?" doubt asked again, returning reliably. He paused, breathed, and answered carefully this time. "Then I will still know I tried," he said calmly. That answer didn't erase doubt, but it reduced its authority. Motivation appeared sometimes, disappeared often, and proved unreliable long-term. Waiting for motivation meant waiting forever, so he stopped waiting. Routine replaced motivation, quietly guiding him when feelings changed. Show up, practice slowly, review honestly, rest briefly, repeat. Those steps carried him further than excitement ever had. Laughter became background noise, still present, but no longer sharp. He noticed something else changing, something internal, something steadier. He reacted less emotionally, recovered faster, and stayed present longer. "Good," he said once, noticing improvement without celebration. Celebration felt unnecessary. Continuation felt enough. People who laughed loudly rarely stayed long enough to see consistency. They appeared, commented, disappeared, chasing easier distractions. He stayed. Staying required patience more than courage, humility more than confidence. Patience grew slowly, strengthened by repetition rather than inspiration. He stopped measuring progress daily and trusted accumulation instead. Accumulation worked quietly, building control beneath the surface. A little more balance, a little more clarity, a little less fear. Nothing impressive yet, nothing shareable, but enough to continue. On difficult days, he remembered why he started. Not to win, not to prove, not to impress, just to see how far honest effort could take him. That reason felt light enough to carry every morning. He accepted that roots grow underground before anything visible appears. No one applauds roots, but without them, nothing stands. The laughter continued occasionally, but it no longer decided direction. Direction came from consistency, not approval. He did not know where the path ended and stopped needing to. Knowing the next step was enough. So he took it quietly again, and again, and again. The days continued without announcement, and progress refused to reveal itself quickly or clearly. He noticed time stretching strangely, some hours heavy, others disappearing without leaving marks. Laughter still appeared, but now it felt predictable, almost scheduled, no longer surprising him. "Still at it?" someone joked once, smiling like concern disguised as humor. "Yes," he replied simply, surprising himself with the calmness in his voice. That calm did not mean confidence. It meant familiarity with doubt and choosing action anyway. He stopped asking if effort mattered and started asking how to improve each attempt. Improvement required attention, and attention required silence away from unnecessary voices. So he created small pockets of quiet, early mornings and late evenings. In those moments, work felt honest, unperformed, free from watching eyes. Mistakes still came, but he met them differently now, slower and more curious. "What caused this?" he asked, not angrily, but patiently. Answers came gradually, sometimes immediately, sometimes after several failed repetitions. He learned to wait for understanding instead of forcing conclusions. Waiting felt uncomfortable at first, like standing still while others passed. But standing still allowed him to notice details he once ignored. Details improved accuracy. Accuracy improved confidence. Confidence reduced hesitation. He stopped rushing through steps just to feel productive. Productivity without learning no longer satisfied him. Some days nothing improved visibly, and frustration knocked again. "This feels pointless," the old voice returned, familiar and persistent. He listened carefully, then answered with action instead of argument. He practiced one small thing deliberately, without expectation. Expectation had once created pressure. Pressure created mistakes. Mistakes fed doubt. Removing expectation softened everything, including his own self-judgment. He allowed himself to be a learner longer than pride preferred. Pride wanted proof. Learning wanted patience. Patience slowly became his advantage, unnoticed but powerful. Others chased excitement, shortcuts, recognition, and quick validation. He chased clarity, control, and quiet improvement. That choice felt lonely sometimes, especially when progress stayed invisible. Loneliness tested commitment more than laughter ever had. "Why am I alone in this?" he wondered during quiet breaks. Then he realized he was not alone. He was simply early. Early often feels lonely before results catch up. This thought didn't comfort him immediately, but it steadied him. He began noticing his reactions changing during pressure. Mistakes no longer triggered embarrassment first. They triggered analysis. Analysis replaced emotion, and emotion lost its grip gradually. He wrote fewer notes now, but thought more deeply about each one. Quality replaced quantity, both in work and reflection. Routine tightened gently around his days, shaping time without suffocating it. He learned when to push and when to rest responsibly. Rest stopped feeling like failure and started feeling like maintenance. Maintenance preserved energy and prevented resentment toward the process. He returned stronger after rest, clearer, less reactive. People commented less now, not impressed, not mocking, simply uninterested. Indifference felt strange, but it gave him freedom. Freedom allowed focus. Focus allowed depth. Depth allowed progress. Progress remained quiet, but he felt it internally, unmistakably present. He stood differently, moved differently, spoke less, listened more. Something changed, a friend remarked once casually. He smiled, unsure how to explain something, built slowly and silently. Explaining felt unnecessary. The change belonged to him. He trusted repetition more than motivation, consistency more than intensity. Intensity faded quickly. Consistency stayed. He began measuring days by effort quality, not emotional satisfaction. Some days were boring, repetitive, and uneventful. Those days mattered more than exciting ones. Exciting days felt rewarding, but ordinary days built structure. Structure supported growth when enthusiasm disappeared. He learned that commitment outlasts feeling. Feeling changes. Commitment decides. When doubt returned, he recognized it faster. "Not today," he said once, quietly returning to work. The voice faded sooner than before, losing strength through neglect. Neglect starved doubt, while attention fed progress. He chose carefully what deserved attention now. Laughter received less. Learning received more. That balance shifted everything. He did not become fearless, but fear stopped directing his choices. Choice returned to him slowly, deliberately, earned through repetition. He felt ownership over his path, even without guarantees. Guarantees had once comforted him. Now they felt unnecessary. Action replaced reassurance. Each step forward felt smaller but lighter. Lightness came from acceptance, not success. He accepted uncertainty as part of meaningful effort. Meaning grew where certainty failed. He stopped imagining future praise and focused on present execution. Execution grounded him in reality. Reality provided feedback without judgment. Feedback guided improvement honestly. He trusted that process more than opinions ever could. Opinions shifted. Process stayed consistent. Consistency carried him forward, quietly, reliably. And so he continued again, without announcement, without applause, without retreat. Time kept moving, not caring whether he felt ready, confident, or uncertain that morning. He learned to respect time because it rewarded consistency more reliably than intensity. Some mornings felt clear, others heavy, but he stopped negotiating with feelings altogether. Show up first, he reminded himself. Decide later how you feel about it. Showing up created momentum before doubt could organize itself into excuses. Excuses sounded intelligent, reasonable, and protective, which made them dangerous. He noticed how easily the mind builds stories to avoid discomfort. This isn't the right moment. You need more preparation. Wait until confidence returns. He recognized these voices now, not as enemies, but as familiar habits. "I hear you," he said calmly, "but I'm working anyway." That response didn't silence the voices, but it weakened their authority. Authority slowly shifted from emotion to action, from feeling to evidence. Evidence came from repetition, from days stacked quietly without dramatic change. He stopped expecting breakthroughs and started trusting accumulation instead. Accumulation felt boring, but boredom stopped scaring him. Boredom meant stability, and stability allowed deeper focus. Deep focus revealed flaws he previously ignored or rushed past. Those flaws no longer embarrassed him, they interested him. Interest replaced shame, and learning replaced self-judgment. He asked better questions now, quieter ones, without urgency attached. What is actually happening here? What am I missing? What improves this slightly? Small improvements felt manageable and honest, unlike dramatic transformations. Transformation sounded exciting, but improvement felt real. He learned that real change rarely announces itself. It whispers through habits, posture, timing, and calmer reactions. Others still commented occasionally, though less frequently and with less certainty. "Still doing this?" someone asked, not laughing this time. "Yes," he replied simply. No explanation followed. Explanation felt unnecessary now, almost distracting. He realized how much energy explanation had consumed before. Energy saved through silence returned to the work itself. Work improved when energy stayed where it belonged. He began noticing changes in his body language. Shoulders relaxed, movement slowed, breathing deepened during pressure. Pressure still existed, but panic no longer accompanied it. Panic once rushed decisions and created mistakes he then regretted. Now he paused before responding, even internally. "Think first," he told himself, "then move." That pause created space between impulse and action. Space allowed choice, and choice restored control. Control felt different than dominance. It felt quiet and grounded. He stopped forcing progress and started allowing it. Allowance did not mean passivity, it meant patience. Patience changed how he viewed difficult days. Difficult days were no longer failures, just slower lessons. He accepted slow lessons as part of learning deeply. Deep learning stayed longer than quick success ever did. He noticed how others chased speed, attention, and shortcuts relentlessly. Speed impressed crowds, but it rarely built resilience. Resilience came from staying when speed lost interest. Staying taught endurance, humility, and emotional regulation. Emotional regulation helped him recover faster after setbacks. Recovery mattered more than avoiding setbacks entirely. Setbacks no longer felt personal, they felt instructional. Instruction arrived without comfort, but with clarity. Clarity guided correction, and correction strengthened confidence. Confidence now felt earned, not imagined or borrowed. Borrowed confidence collapsed under pressure, earned confidence adapted. Adaptation became his advantage during unpredictable moments. When plans failed, he adjusted instead of freezing. Adjustment required acceptance, not frustration. Acceptance reduced wasted energy and preserved focus. Focus deepened as distractions lost importance. He checked progress less often, trusting direction more. Direction stayed consistent even when pace changed. Changing pace no longer scared him. Fast or slow, forward still counted. Counting forward steps kept him grounded during uncertainty. Uncertainty stopped feeling threatening and started feeling normal. Normal uncertainty removed urgency from decision-making. Urgency once created reckless moves. Now decisions arrived calmly, supported by experience. Experience accumulated quietly, without announcement or validation. Validation no longer motivated him the way it once had. Motivation shifted from external reaction to internal alignment. Alignment felt peaceful, like walking in the right direction. Even when tired, direction remained clear. Fatigue signaled rest, not retreat. He rested intentionally without guilt or self-criticism. Rest restored clarity rather than interrupting progress. Progress resumed naturally after rest, without forcing momentum. Momentum now came from habit, not excitement. Habit carried him on days excitement disappeared completely. He trusted habit more than mood. Mood changed quickly. Habit stayed dependable. Dependability built self-respect quietly over time. Self-respect changed how he spoke to himself. The inner voice softened, becoming firm but supportive. "You're learning," it said. "Keep going." Those words felt believable because evidence supported them. Evidence replaced hope as his primary reassurance. Reassurance no longer needed to be emotional. It needed to be consistent. Consistency remained his quiet anchor. Anchor held him steady during waves of doubt. Doubt still came, but it passed sooner now. Passing doubt left space for clarity to return. Clarity guided the next step again. One step remained enough. It always had been. And so he took it, without drama, without pause. Again. By now continuing felt less like effort and more like a rhythm he trusted. Rhythm removed urgency and replaced it with steady movement through ordinary demanding days. He stopped asking when results would appear and focused on how work felt. Work felt calmer, more precise, less rushed by fear or imagined judgment. He noticed how preparation improved naturally without forcing discipline aggressively anymore. Discipline now felt like care, not pressure, not punishment, not self-criticism. When challenges appeared, his first reaction was no longer emotional resistance. Instead, he paused, observed, and decided what the situation actually required. "What is needed here?" he asked quietly, without panic or blame. That question simplified complex moments into manageable next steps. Next steps kept him grounded when uncertainty tried to grow larger. Uncertainty still existed, but it no longer demanded immediate answers. Answers arrived through engagement, not overthinking or endless planning. He trusted engagement more than speculation, action more than reassurance. Speculation once drained energy without providing clarity or direction. Now energy stayed with the work instead of imagined outcomes. He worked slower than others sometimes, but with deeper attention. Attention revealed patterns he previously missed while rushing. Those patterns guided improvement more reliably than external advice. Advice came occasionally, sometimes helpful, sometimes unnecessary. He learned to listen without absorbing everything offered. Filtering information protected focus and preserved confidence. Confidence no longer spiked or collapsed dramatically. It remained steady, built from repeated proof of persistence. Persistence taught him patience without demanding perfection. Perfection once distracted him from learning honestly. Now mistakes were welcomed as part of refinement. Refinement required humility and willingness to stay uncomfortable briefly. Uncomfortable moments no longer triggered escape or avoidance. He stayed present, even when discomfort asked him to retreat. Staying present strengthened tolerance for difficulty. Difficulty became familiar, and familiarity reduced fear. Fear lost urgency when it stopped being avoided. Avoidance had once created more fear than effort ever did. Effort now felt cleaner, less emotional, more intentional. He noticed fewer inner arguments delaying action. Action began sooner, guided by clarity instead of mood. Mood still changed, but it stopped controlling decisions. Decisions aligned more closely with values than feelings. Values remained stable when emotions fluctuated unpredictably. Stability gave him confidence during uncertain conversations and outcomes. He spoke less, listened more, and chose words carefully. Careful words reduced misunderstandings and unnecessary conflict. Conflict had once drained him. Now it rarely appeared. When conflict did appear, he addressed it calmly. Calm response surprised others and strengthened his self-trust. Self-trust mattered more than being understood immediately. Understanding sometimes arrived later, sometimes never arrived. He accepted that acceptance cannot be controlled. Control over effort, however, remained available daily. Daily availability of effort made progress feel reliable. Reliability replaced hope as his primary motivation. Hope fluctuates, reliability accumulates quietly. Accumulation became visible in subtle ways. Posture improved. Breathing slowed. Reactions softened. Softened reactions improved relationships without deliberate effort. People responded differently now, sensing steadiness beneath words. Some respected it, some ignored it. Neither changed his direction. Direction remained internal, defined by commitment rather than approval. Approval once tempted him to adjust course unnecessarily. Now he trusted alignment over popularity. Alignment created peace even when outcomes felt delayed. Delay stopped feeling like failure and felt like incubation. Incubation allowed growth without exposure to constant evaluation. Evaluation had once created pressure and distorted priorities. Now priorities stayed clear and uncomplicated. Do the work, learn, rest, repeat. Those steps carried him further than ambition ever had. Ambition once promised speed but delivered instability. Stability now felt more valuable than speed. Speed impresses briefly. Stability sustains long journeys. Long journeys require endurance more than excitement. Excitement fades quickly when difficulty persists. Endurance remains when commitment is clear. Commitment clarified his identity quietly. He was no longer someone trying to become something. He was someone already doing the work daily. That realization reduced anxiety about the future. Future planning no longer overshadowed present execution. Execution anchored him in reality. Reality provided feedback without exaggeration. Feedback guided improvement without judgment. Judgment had once blocked learning. Now learning flowed steadily. He learned from success without arrogance. He learned from failure without shame. Both informed the next step equally. Equality between outcomes created emotional balance. Balance preserved energy during demanding phases. Demanding phases no longer felt overwhelming. They felt expected, manageable, and temporary. Temporary challenges stopped feeling permanent. Perspective widened as experience accumulated. Experience taught him that progress is rarely dramatic. Progress often hides inside consistency. Consistency rewarded patience generously. Patience now felt like strength, not delay. Strength appeared quietly without announcement. He recognized it not through results but through response. Response to difficulty had changed. That change mattered more than external validation. Validation once fueled him briefly. Now, purpose sustained him continuously. Purpose felt calm, grounded, and deeply personal. Personal meaning removed pressure to perform for others. Performance for others had once drained authenticity. Authenticity now guided effort naturally. Natural effort felt lighter, even during long days. Long days no longer scared him. They simply required pacing and rest. Rest was taken intentionally, not defensively. Defensive rest had once followed burnout. Intentional rest prevented burnout entirely. Prevention felt wiser than recovery. Wisdom accumulated slowly through experience. Experience softened expectations without lowering standards. Standards remained high, but kinder. Kind standards encouraged progress without fear. Fear lost influence as safety increased internally. Internal safety allowed risk without panic. Risk now felt calculated, not reckless. Calculated risk improved growth opportunities. Opportunities appeared because he was prepared. Preparation happened quietly over time. Time rewarded preparation eventually. Eventually no longer felt distant. It felt inevitable if effort continued. So he continued, steady and attentive, not chasing results, not avoiding difficulty, just doing the work again. By this stage, effort no longer felt like resistance. It felt like cooperation with himself. He noticed less inner conflict before starting difficult tasks each day. Starting used to require convincing. Now it required simple acknowledgement and movement. I know this will be uncomfortable, he told himself. That's fine. Accepting discomfort reduced its power immediately. Power once came from avoidance. Now it came from familiarity. Familiarity softened fear without removing challenge. Challenges still demanded attention, patience, and presence every time. Presence became his strongest skill, quietly built through repetition. He stayed with tasks longer, without checking clocks or progress constantly. Constant checking had once increased anxiety without improving results. Now he trusted time to do its work naturally. Trust did not mean passivity. It meant staying engaged without panic. Engagement deepened learning more than urgency ever had. Urgency rushed understanding. Calm attention revealed structure. Structure made complexity manageable and reduced emotional overload. He broke problems into smaller pieces without dramatizing difficulty. Difficulty lost its identity as an enemy and became a teacher. Teachers require patience, not resistance. Patience grew because he stopped expecting comfort from growth. Growth was not meant to feel pleasant all the time. It was meant to be honest. Honesty allowed him to see limitations clearly without shame. Shame once distorted perception and slowed progress unnecessarily. Without shame, correction felt neutral and practical. Adjust this, he said quietly, then try again. That tone changed everything. It removed emotional weight from improvement. Improvement became technical, not personal. Personalizing mistakes had once drained energy quickly. Now energy stayed available for problem solving. Problem solving replaced self-protection as his primary response. Protection had once come from excuses and withdrawal. Withdrawal felt safe but produced stagnation. Movement felt risky but produced clarity. Clarity reduced fear faster than reassurance ever had. He noticed how confidence now followed action, not the other way around. Waiting to feel confident had delayed him in the past. Acting first created evidence. Evidence created belief grounded in reality. Reality proved more stable than imagination. Imagination had once amplified fear and expectation unnecessarily. Now imagination stayed quiet, allowing observation to lead. Observation revealed patterns in behavior, focus, and reaction. Patterns guided improvement more effectively than motivation. Motivation fluctuated. Patterns remained reliable. Reliability increased trust in himself. Trust changed how he spoke internally. The inner voice became calmer, less dramatic, more instructional. Stay with it, it said. You're learning. Those words felt supportive because experience confirmed them. He stopped seeking reassurance from others. Reassurance often created dependency and hesitation. Independence required accepting uncertainty fully. Uncertainty no longer felt like danger. It felt like open space for adaptation. Adaptation required flexibility, not control. Control had once caused rigidity and frustration. Flexibility allowed adjustments without emotional disruption. He adjusted pace often, but direction stayed consistent. Consistency created identity over time. Identity formed quietly through repeated choices. He was no longer someone trying to prove persistence. He was someone who persisted. That shift reduced mental effort significantly. Effort now went into the work itself, not into convincing. Convincing himself had once been exhausting. Now he simply began. Beginning became automatic, almost boring. Boring was no longer a problem. Boring meant stability. Stability allowed depth. Depth improved quality. Quality built pride without arrogance. Arrogance never appeared because struggle remained visible. He remembered earlier confusion clearly. Memory kept him humble. Humility kept him open. Openness allowed learning to continue. He listened carefully when feedback mattered. He ignored noise when it did not. Discernment protected focus. Focus preserved energy. Energy sustained consistency. Consistency reinforced trust. Trust supported patience. Patience enabled endurance. Endurance made long timelines manageable. Manageable timelines reduced anxiety. Reduced anxiety improved sleep. Better sleep improved clarity. Clarity improved decisions. Decisions aligned better with values. Values guided effort without conflict. Conflict had once fragmented attention. Now, attention stayed unified. Unified attention improved performance. Performance improved quietly. Quiet improvement avoided pressure. Pressure had once distorted motivation. Motivation now felt unnecessary. Habit carried him forward reliably. Habit did not ask permission, it simply acted. Action continued even on low-energy days. Low-energy days no longer scared him. They were part of rhythm. Rhythm replaced struggle. Struggle once defined the journey. Now the journey felt steady, not easy, but stable. Stability felt powerful. Power no longer meant dominance. It meant continuation without collapse. Collapse had once felt close. Now collapse felt unlikely, not because he was invincible, but because he was prepared. Preparation came from repetition. Repetition came from commitment. Commitment stayed intact, so he stayed, again and again. By now he understood something quietly important about endurance and attention over long periods. Endurance was not about pushing harder, but about adjusting gently without losing direction. He stopped demanding constant progress and allowed effort to breathe between repetitions. Breathing space prevented tension from turning into resentment toward the work itself. Resentment had once drained motivation faster than difficulty ever could. Now he noticed signals earlier and responded with care instead of frustration. Something is off, he would think, slowing down rather than forcing continuation. Slowing down revealed details hidden by urgency and emotional pressure. Details mattered more than the speed when learning complex movements and decisions. He learned to observe himself like a coach, not a judge. Judgment created fear. Observation created improvement. Improvement required patience, honesty, and willingness to stay uncomfortable briefly. Discomfort no longer signaled danger. It signaled growth approaching unfamiliar territory. Unfamiliar territory once triggered avoidance. Now it invited curiosity instead. Curiosity softened resistance and kept learning active without emotional struggle. He asked quieter questions now, without urgency attached to answers. What happens if I try this? What changes if I slow slightly? These questions open possibilities rather than closing them with assumptions. Assumptions had once limited exploration and reinforced old habits. Old habits faded as new ones formed through repetition and reflection. Reflection happened naturally now, not forced at the end of each day. Moments of insight arrived during work, not only after it. He noticed how calm improved accuracy and reduced unnecessary corrections. Corrections became smaller, more precise, less emotionally charged. Less emotional charge meant less recovery time after mistakes. Recovery time mattered more than avoiding mistakes entirely. He recovered faster because mistakes no longer felt personal. Personalizing errors had once stalled progress unnecessarily. Now errors felt technical, solvable, and temporary. Temporary problems no longer threatened his sense of direction. Direction remained steady even when outcomes fluctuated unpredictably. He learned to separate direction from results consciously. Results varied daily. Direction stayed consistent. Consistency provided psychological safety during uncertain phases. Safety allowed risk without panic or hesitation. Risk became intentional rather than impulsive. Intentional risk improved learning speed without increasing stress. Stress still appeared occasionally, but it lost intensity quickly. Intensity reduced when expectations became realistic and flexible. Flexibility allowed adaptation without emotional conflict. Conflict had once consumed attention and energy. Energy now stayed focused on execution and learning. Execution improved when distractions lost importance. Distractions included opinions, comparisons, and imagined timelines. Timelines once created pressure that distorted decision-making. Now time felt like a partner rather than an enemy. Partnership with time encouraged patience and long-term thinking. Long-term thinking reduced fear of slow days. Slow days no longer triggered self-doubt or urgency. Urgency had once created rushed decisions and avoidable setbacks. Now decisions arrive calmly, supported by experience. Experience accumulated quietly without announcement or validation. Validation no longer motivated him the way it once had. Motivation shifted inward, grounded in alignment with personal values. Values clarified priorities and simplified choices. Simplified choices reduced mental fatigue significantly. Fatigue now signaled rest, not weakness. Rest was taken intentionally, without guilt or justification. Guilt had once interrupted recovery and prolonged exhaustion. Now rest restored clarity and renewed engagement naturally. Engagement returned without force after sufficient recovery. He trusted this cycle instead of fighting it. Trust replaced anxiety as his default response to uncertainty. Uncertainty felt familiar, no longer threatening or overwhelming. Familiar uncertainty allowed calm planning without obsession. Planning became lighter, more adaptable, less rigid. Rigidity had once caused frustration when reality differed. Adaptability allowed adjustment without emotional disruption. Disruption no longer derailed progress entirely. He learned to pause and recalibrate rather than abandon direction. Recalibration preserved momentum during unexpected changes. Changes appeared regularly, but they no longer shocked him. Shock had once triggered emotional reactions. Now, he responded thoughtfully, not defensively. Defensiveness had once blocked learning opportunities. Learning now remained open even during difficulty. Difficulty stopped feeling personal. It felt like part of the environment, manageable and temporary. Temporary challenges did not threaten long-term effort. Long-term effort felt secure because habits supported it. Habits carried him forward when feelings fluctuated. Fluctuation no longer defined his behavior. Behavior aligned with commitment rather than emotion. Commitment provided stability during uncertain outcomes. Stability reduced inner noise significantly. Reduced noise improved concentration and clarity. Clarity guided better decisions under pressure. Pressure still existed, but it no longer dictated actions. Actions felt deliberate, controlled, and grounded. Grounded actions built confidence through experience. Experience reinforced trust in his ability to adapt. Adaptation became his quiet strength. Strength no longer meant pushing through pain. It meant knowing when to adjust and continue. Continuing felt sustainable, not forced. Sustainability mattered more than intensity over time. Time rewarded sustainability consistently. He felt prepared for longer journeys now. Journeys no longer scared him. They felt navigable, one step at a time. One step remained enough. It always had been. So he continued, attentive, patient, and steady again. He noticed something unexpected happening inside him as weeks quietly continued passing forward. Continuing no longer required arguments or internal speeches to begin working. Beginning felt automatic, like breathing, natural, unforced, and no longer dramatic. He stopped asking permission from his mood before starting important tasks. Mood could come later. Movement came first, always. This small shift changed everything without announcing itself loudly. Work began earlier. Resistance appeared later. Sometimes it never appeared at all. He realized resistance feeds on delay, not difficulty. Delay gives doubt time to build stories and excuses. So he reduced delay deliberately, even on uncomfortable days. "I'll start badly," he told himself once. "That's still starting." Starting badly still moved things forward. Forward movement reduced fear faster than reassurance ever did. Fear shrank when faced repeatedly without negotiation. Negotiation had once drained energy without producing action. Now action arrived before debate finished forming. Debate faded when ignored consistently. He also noticed how his inner language softened further. It no longer attacked or pressured him into progress. Instead, it guided him gently toward the next step. "Focus here," it said. "That's enough for now." Enough became a powerful word. Enough removed pressure to prove progress constantly. He stopped stacking expectations on each day. Days no longer needed to be productive or impressive. They only needed to be honest. Honesty kept effort clean and sustainable. Sustainable effort outlasted bursts of excitement easily. Excitement still appeared occasionally, but he no longer depended on it. Depending on excitement had once caused crashes afterward. Now steadiness replaced spikes. Spikes impress briefly, steadiness builds quietly. He learned to respect quiet builders. Quiet builders rarely announce themselves. They show up repeatedly, adjust patiently, and stay longer than others. Staying longer revealed patterns invisible to short-term effort. Patterns explained past failures without blame or shame. Of course, this was difficult, he thought. I hadn't stayed long enough. Staying long enough became his new advantage. Others tried, quit, tried again, and disappeared. He stayed. Staying built resilience without heroic effort. Resilience formed slowly, like muscle strengthened through repetition. Repetition no longer bored him. Boredom once scared him because it felt meaningless. Now boredom felt neutral, even useful. Boredom signaled familiarity, and familiarity allowed precision. Precision improved quality quietly. Quality built confidence without noise. Confidence no longer needed encouragement. It stood on evidence. Evidence came from hundreds of ordinary repetitions. Ordinary repetitions added up unexpectedly. One day something felt easier. Not everything, just one part. He noticed it immediately. That was smoother, he said quietly, surprised. Surprise turned into curiosity, not celebration. What changed? He asked himself calmly. The answer was simple. Time and consistency had done their work. No trick, no breakthrough, no sudden realization, just staying long enough. He did not rush to share this moment. Sharing felt unnecessary. He wanted to understand it first. Understanding deepened appreciation. Appreciation strengthened patience. Patience protected progress. He stopped chasing milestones. Milestones often distracted him from the process itself. Process deserved attention, not interruption. Interrupting process for validation had once slowed him. Now he stayed with the work even when progress appeared. Appearing progress did not change behavior. He continued exactly the same way. That consistency surprised others quietly. "You're still doing this?" someone asked once without laughter. "Yes," he replied simply. The simplicity felt powerful. No explanation followed. No defense was needed. Defense implies doubt. He felt none. Not certainty, but steadiness. Steadiness felt stronger than confidence ever had. Confidence wavered. Steadiness endured. Endurance replaced urgency. Urgency had once driven mistakes and regret. Now urgency rarely appeared. When it did, he slowed down intentionally. Slowing down neutralized urgency effectively. Effective responses mattered more than fast reactions. He noticed fewer emotional spikes throughout his days. Emotions still came, but they no longer controlled behavior. Control felt like the wrong word. Guidance felt more accurate. He guided himself instead of forcing. Forcing had once created internal conflict. Conflict consumed energy. Guidance conserved it. Energy stayed available for learning. Learning accelerated when emotional noise decreased. Noise reduction improved clarity. Clarity improved decisions. Decisions aligned better with values. Values remained stable even when outcomes varied. He trusted values to guide direction. Direction stayed clear without constant reassurance. Reassurance was replaced by familiarity with the path. Familiar paths reduce fear. Fear lost its influence gradually. Gradually felt slow before. Now gradually felt reliable. Reliable progress felt safe. Safety allowed risk without panic. Risk taken calmly produced growth. Growth felt earned. Earned growth stayed. He felt prepared for longer challenges now. Long challenges no longer intimidated him. They simply required patience and repetition. Repetition had become normal. Normal felt powerful. Power no longer meant pushing harder. It meant continuing gently without collapsing. Collapsing had once felt close. Now collapse felt unlikely. Not impossible, but manageable. Manageable challenges no longer threatened identity. Identity shifted quietly. He was no longer someone trying to become disciplined. He was disciplined. He was no longer someone proving persistence. He persisted. These realizations arrived without ceremony. No announcement, no applause. Just quiet acknowledgement. Acknowledgement felt enough. Enough allowed him to rest peacefully. Rest restored clarity instead of guilt. Guilt no longer accompanied pauses. Pauses supported longevity. Longevity mattered now. He was no longer rushing toward an end. He was building something meant to last. Lasting effort required humility. Humility remained present. He remembered early confusion clearly. Memory kept him grounded. Grounded effort stayed consistent. Consistency stayed reliable. Reliability became his identity. And so, without needing to be seen, heard, or praised, he kept going. The journey was never about proving anyone wrong or silencing laughter with visible success. It was about staying present when quitting felt reasonable, comfortable, and quietly acceptable. He learned that laughter fades faster than effort, especially when effort repeats without negotiation. Each ordinary day carried more weight than dramatic moments ever could. Small actions, done consistently, reshaped him more than confidence ever promised. He discovered that consistency does not shout, but it changes everything underneath. What moved him forward was not belief, but returning after doubt appeared again. Doubt never disappeared completely, but it stopped controlling his decisions. He learned to pause, breathe, and choose one clear step repeatedly. That simple habit turned confusion into direction over time. Fear lost strength when faced calmly, without argument or resistance. Resistance only fed fear, but calm attention weakened it naturally. He stopped waiting for motivation and trusted routine instead. Routine carried him when emotions fluctuated unpredictably. Each repetition added stability, even when progress stayed invisible. Invisible progress proved more reliable than excitement. Excitement faded quickly, but steady effort remained available daily. He accepted that growth rarely announces itself loudly. It builds quietly inside posture, breath, reaction, and patience. Patience became strength when urgency lost importance. Urgency had once rushed him into mistakes and regret. Now, slowing down protected clarity and accuracy. Accuracy improved outcomes without pressure. Pressure once distorted effort and drained energy. Now effort felt cleaner and more honest. He learned to separate direction from daily results. Results changed often, but direction stayed consistent. Consistency gave him psychological safety during uncertainty. Safety allowed risk without panic. Risk taken calmly produced learning, not collapse. He trusted adjustment more than perfection. Perfection had once delayed action. Adjustment kept movement alive. He measured progress privately, without comparison. Comparison had once stolen focus and confidence. Now focus stayed with the next step. The next step was always enough. He realized this story was never only about him. It belongs to anyone continuing while feeling unseen or misunderstood. If you are listening now, remember that quiet effort counts. You do not need applause to grow. You need repetition, honesty, and patience. Practice one small step today, then repeat it tomorrow. Growth follows repetition, not intensity. Thank you for staying until the end and listening with care. If this helped you, you can follow and subscribe to continue learning together. Continue step by step, calmly, honestly, and without rushing the process.